Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. Today we're going to be talking about a Fitz Special reproduction. John Henry Fitzgerald was in the World War I era and beyond a noted competition and exhibition shooter, and in 1918 he was hired by Colt as a salesman. And he was a very large man with very large hands. And he discovered that the Colt Police Positive Special, while he thought it a fine revolver, should have a 2-inch barrel, and something should be done about that trigger guard. He found that he could not really use the trigger with winter gloves on, and so he simply cut it away. Now, he is known to have carried a pair of what became known as Fitz Specials in the pockets of his coat, particularly in winter, which he had specially lined with leather so the guns wouldn't wear through the pockets and fall out. And that was the purpose of the Fitz Special, is just so that he could get his relatively large glove-clad fingers on the trigger. All sorts of other virtues quickly became attributed to this, like getting onto the trigger faster, which you can, and other things. And the legend grew. He was very prominent, knew a lot of the people in the gun magazine trade, knew a lot of law enforcement officers, and there was a certain amount of demand for guns modified in the fashion that he had modified his. So, from about 1926, when he did the modifications initially, you could contact the Colt Custom Shop and get a Fitz Special. They never advertised this. They never had it in their catalog. But people knew. And how many were actually made by Fitz? We don't know. The best estimates I've seen vary from 40, as few as 40, to as many as 200. So, we don't know. We're not likely to find out either. However, a lot of other gunsmiths over the years did this sort of modification. And there are a lot of Fitz Specials out there of wildly varying quality. Eventually, Fitz moved on to making Fitz Specials based on the Colt New Service in 44 and 45 calibers of various sorts. But again, we don't know the numbers. He did famously make one for Rex Applegate in 45 Colt after Rex had a dust-up south of the border where it took 5 shots from his .38 to stop a man charging him with a machete. I think the wrong people take the wrong message away from that. He actually managed to stop a lunatic charging him with a machete with only 5 shots from a .38 Smith & Wesson. That's an impressive act of marksmanship. But Fitz, being the character he was, made him a new service in 45 Colt, which was engraved to Rex from Fitz, I believe. Anyway, he remained at Colt through World War II, almost through World War II. He reportedly left Colt in 1944 and passed away in 1945. So, the legend lives on, and you see the Fitz treatment given to any number of revolvers, mostly Colts, but some people do them on Smith & Wessons, which just never looked right to me. Now, Fitz was not the first person by any means to bob the hammer of a double-action revolver. He was not the first person to cut away the trigger guard of a revolver. But this combination of features with the 2-inch barrel sort of established a signature look, as witnessed by the term Fitz Special. And Fitz was highly influential in the development of the Colt Detective Special as well. And a number of Fitz conversions, I don't know if Fitz did them or if other people did, or both. Typically, the Detective Special is the target for the Fitz treatment. Let's go to the tabletop and take a look at what exactly that is. First things first, let's unload and show clear. You pull back on this protrusion, pop the cylinder out, and the chambers are empty. Now, the defining features of a Fitz Special are first and foremost the cutaway trigger guard, the barrel shortened to around 2 inches, usually the ejector is also shortened, and the hammer has had the spur cut off, so it's bobbed. And all of this was to facilitate pocket carry in the particular way that John Henry did it, which was in a leather-lined pocket of his coat. Typically, they also have a variation of the half-round Colt front sight. I did not have one. And I'm trying an experiment with a brass top half of the sight to give an enhanced sight picture by picking up ambient light. And it works moderately well. And through what I can only attribute to divine intervention, the gun hits right where it's supposed to. So yay me. Now, some of the particulars are the trigger guard is trimmed and rounded nicely just at the end of the trigger. So it does still serve some function in preventing the trigger from being pulled. Also, the section ahead of it is not just have the trigger guard cut away, but it is flattened, because otherwise there's a protrusion like this that would stick down and get in the way. And extractors are generally shortened, but not always, and sometimes the button is removed from the end. Now, I shortened this one and reinstalled the button because I like the look of it, and that rod is really quite narrow. The hammer, in addition to being bobbed, has checkering cut on the top to facilitate thumb cocking the gun. Although I find it hard to imagine a circumstance under which that would be necessary, given that this was designed as a short-range defensive weapon. The trigger, double action, in old Colt fashion, is very smooth, but not particularly light. It breaks at about 10 pounds. And the single action is nice and crisp, but about 5 pounds. So it's not at all a light trigger. And honestly, I'm not going to change that. I'm not sure having a light trigger on something with no trigger guard is really all that wonderful an idea. I also made some moose antler grips for it, because antler is cool. This is some material a friend of mine brought back from Alaska. And they fit the frame, which, as you can see, is the original police positive style grip frame, which is almost Bisley-like in its curvature and more narrow than the later guns or the detective specials. So, other than that, I did cut a step here in one of the gun's earlier incarnations and applied 49 per inch checkering in an effort to improve the sight picture. And while it does make a marginal improvement in the sight picture, I wouldn't do it again. Now, police positive special Fitz's made by Fitz at the Colt factory were all, as far as I know, in .38 special caliber. This one is not. This is in .32-20, which is a small game cartridge developed by Winchester in the late 19th century, which featured a 100-grain bullet over 20 grains of black powder, and most of the major companies made revolvers chambered in it, because people like having a revolver that shoots the same caliber as their rifle. Now, being a rifle cartridge designed for use in rifles, it is not optimum or at its best necessarily in a handgun, especially not one with a 2-inch barrel. But technology has moved on, and without making dangerously high-pressure loads, it is possible to get well-performing loads out of even a 2-inch gun in this cartridge. The cartridge cases are quite fragile, so you have to be very careful reloading them. But it is also not common to find 32-20 ammunition anymore. So if you're interested in one, you're pretty much going to want to hand load. So there's not much more to see than that. Just a nice compact pocket revolver with no trigger guard. And that is the Fitz Special. In addition to the iconic and infamous Fitz Special, John Henry Fitzwilliam also, as I said before, was a noted competition shooter, demonstration shooter, sort of well hooked into the print gun community, and was really quite influential. And several famous people had Fitz Specials, notably Lindbergh, the pilot. Rex Applegate had one. And, it's just, as I say, it's become kind of an icon, especially for revolver guys. And in the modern world, it's kind of hard to justify this because there's a ton of good snubbies out there. 2-inch barrels aren't uncommon. Bobbed or shrouded hammers. And this thing of cutting away the trigger guard. Imagine in our litigious modern world, any gun company agreeing to have that come out, even out of their custom shop. It just ain't going to happen. This was kind of a revolution in its day, but still, it's very cool. And that is part of the answer to the question of why. Why would I take an old gun and turn it into a replica of a Fitz Special? And a large part of that is, as I said, because it's cool. But there's also a sense of history attached to it, an homage, if you will, to the great gun guys of the past. And it's just something I've always kind of wanted for no good reason. And believe me, there's no good reason for me to have it, but I do, and I really enjoy it. Before I turned it into a Fitz, the gun shot very well. It still shoots just as well. So, it's a fun conversation piece. It was interesting to do. So anyway, my rendition of a Fitz Special, and I really like it. I'm really pleased with it. If you like the video, please feel free to hit like and subscribe. And it's the only way YouTube acknowledges my existence, other than to tell me they're not going to give me any of the ad revenue. And speaking of that, I'm a big sap. I'm going to do this anyway, but I am not a man of great financial means. So if you'd like to contribute and help me out, because guns, ammo, parts, everything costs money, there's a link to my Patreon below. $1 a month tossed my way, if enough of you do it, makes a big difference and makes this all a lot easier. I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.